Hello and welcome to the adventures of George Washington. I am your guest host, Dr. Cunningham. George Washington shaped his life around 7 guiding principles: integrity, energy, courage, generosity, justice, wisdom, and temperance. Embracing the spirit of a true Stoic, he practiced these values daily and believed that the success of American democracy depended on citizens all upholding similar ideals. This episode of The Adventures of George Washington shines a spotlight on the first principle: integrity. The myth of a young boy chopping down a prized cherry tree and then admitting his actions to his father is one of the first and strongest impressions Americans have of George Washington.
Pa, I can't tell a lie. I did cut it with my hatchet.
Although Parson Mason Locke Weems in all probability fabricated this story, along with other anecdotes in his 1806 biography of Washington, his book was widely read during the 19th century, and the belief that America's leading founding father was a man of integrity and honesty was firmly implanted into the minds of Americans. The legendary tales spun by Parson Weems may have embellished the truth. However, nearly all of George Washington's biographers, and more importantly, the people who knew him personally, agreed on one thing: integrity and honesty were central to his character. Washington held himself and others to the highest possible standards. As one of his earliest biographers, John Kingston, observed,
"Stubborn integrity and just honor sustained him and was his main sheet anchor in every gust of political difficulty. And when assaulted by covert and open adversaries, for even Washington had his foes, he stood like the rock which, sometimes covered with waves and tempestuous storms, seems to yield and depart from its place. But by and by the foaming surges recede and the rock remains firm and immovable." Such was Washington.
Kingston's observation is particularly insightful, as it highlights that while integrity is always essential, its true value emerges during times of adversity, when it becomes the crucial strength that enables a leader to persevere where others might falter. Nearly 2 centuries later, historian Joseph Ellis echoed this same sentiment when he wrote that even Washington's harshest critics conceded he was a man who could not be bribed, corrupted, or compromised. It is difficult to imagine current political leaders meeting this high standard. Thomas Jefferson, a close acquaintance who was sometimes a friend and often a critic of Washington, ultimately judged Washington's character by his integrity. In 1814, when an aspiring Washington biographer asked Jefferson to describe the man, Jefferson replied,
"His integrity was most pure, his justice the most inflexible I have ever known, not motives of interest or consanguinity, of friendship or hatred being able to bias his decision. He was indeed, in every sense of the word, a wise, a good, and a great man."
Thus, according to Thomas Jefferson, George Washington was not the type of leader to use his power to silence political opponents. Jefferson reiterated this sentiment in a 1789 letter to federal Judge Francis Hopkinson, where he said that Washington was fully qualified to put the new government so underway as to secure it against the efforts of opposition, because he was an executive of perfect integrity. Jefferson was so certain of his assessment of Washington that he said he would vouch at the judgment seat of God, because his opinion was based on an acquaintance of 30 years, which involved serving together in the Virginia legislature and in the Continental Congress, corresponding regularly with each other, and serving 4 years as President Washington's Secretary of State. Washington provided a judgment of his own integrity when the Congress unanimously selected him to be the first President of the United States.
"Integrity and firmness are all I can promise. These, be the voyage long or short, shall never forsake me."
Washington regarded integrity as the single most vital quality for anyone serving in government, When President John Adams sought his advice on appointing citizens to public office, Washington was unwavering, saying that above all else, the candidate must possess incorruptible integrity. He offered similar guidance to a young man aspiring to join the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, urging that every decision be guided by principles of integrity and honor. Integrity, in Washington's view, was the cornerstone upon which all other principles depended, forming the essential bridge between the individual and society. By acting with integrity, people not only honored their own values and self-worth, but also strengthened the fabric of society, because others could trust their actions and rely on their word. This mutual trust and reliability, Washington believed, were the true foundations of a strong and thriving community. Washington explained how integrity linked the individual to society in a letter to his nephew Bartholomew Dandridge. In 1797, Dandridge was leaving the United States to serve as the secretary to U.S. Ambassador William Vans Murray in the Netherlands. Washington wrote,
I have full confidence that those principles of honor, integrity, and benevolence, which I have reason to believe have hitherto guided your steps, will still continue to mark your conduct. I have only to add a wish that you may lose no opportunity of making such advances in useful acquirements as may benefit yourself, your friends, and mankind. The career of life on which you are now entering will present new scenes and frequent opportunities for the improvement of a mind desirous of obtaining useful knowledge, but I am sure you will never forget that, without virtue and without integrity, the finest talents of the most brilliant accomplishments can never gain the respect or conciliate the esteem of the truly valuable part of mankind.
Washington was telling the young man that it was acceptable to seize opportunities when they arose. However, a person with integrity would ensure not only that the individual benefited from the opportunity, but the rest of society as well. On the other hand, when a person without integrity seized an opportunity, they sought only self-gratification and thus would lose the respect of their society. Washington believed that integrity and honesty were principles or skills that a person could lose if not persistently exercised. They needed to be continually and purposefully practiced with patience. He recognized that people would sometimes fall short of their desired level of integrity, honesty, reliability, and honor, but he insisted that each failure must be met with a desire to improve. Dr. Stephen Covey's contemporary definitions of integrity and honesty beautifully capture the essence of Washington's philosophy. Integrity, Covey explains, means ensuring that your actions consistently reflect your words, while honesty means that your words truthfully represent your actions. The principle of integrity creates a powerful standard for personal conduct, one that Washington believed was essential for building trust and character. Thank you for watching. If you found the content useful or entertaining, please subscribe. Please see this video's description for more information, including a complete list of references.